Welcome everyone back to the Cowboy Network Marketing channel. I got a good friend and I would say, close personal friend and mentor of mine, Kenny McElroy, on here today. And if you've never seen Kenny or heard of him, you need to go check out his website at kennymcroy.com, right? And and then he's been part of the real estate world for 30 some odd years. He's Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad's real estate advisor and good friend of his. And so we're going to kind of go over the ranch method of how this is just not for network marketing, but for any business that you really need to do and your lifestyle of how to do it. Anything else to add there, Kenny?
No, that's great. That's good. Let's jump.
You're kind of off in the distance of your volume there. I don't know if your microphone's a little far away.
Oh, okay. Let me
Oh,
hold
there
on.
you go. Perfect. There you go.
That a little better?
Yep, that's good.
Okay, cool.
Let's get into your favorite thing, residuals, cash flow. Let's jump into a little bit of that. Of why is that so important to you?
Well, I think what happens when you start trying to figure out money is you go to work, you work hard, you get a paycheck, and you realize that there's a lot of taxes and stuff coming out of that, and then every time you just get a little bit more, like a raise or maybe promotion, um, you kind of upgrade your lifestyle, and so you never really kind of get out of like this vortex really. And so I think the for me, I was like, man, I got to figure out a way where I have other sources of revenue coming in at the same time. And also, that's kind of a single point of failure to having one job. And I'm sure everybody believes that they're really, really good at their jobs, and they would never ever be eliminated in any way. But the reality is that life happens, and companies get closed, they merge, they expand, and all kinds of things happen, and a lot of times I think employees are sitting out going, man, I poured my heart and soul into this place, and so I just saw that a lot, right? And I was in that situation too. So I think I was probably like a lot of others. And I was like, man, I got to figure out a way to get other revenue coming in somehow, other, lines of money coming in from other businesses and things. And that's when I kind of started on the real estate path.
Yeah, and one of the your first books you written by yourself was The Sleeping Giant, and you went around and this was in the 2000s, correct? I mean, about mid 2000s when you released
Yeah.
that book.
Yeah.
And you was calling it then, and I think we're experiencing this more of, we need more entrepreneurs in this world doing things. And I think now with AI of replacing so many jobs out there, uh, that is so much more important to become your own entrepreneur, start doing multiple different things all at one time.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the world rewards entrepreneurs, like, because I kind of look at it, and there's two sides to it. One, entrepreneurship generally produces things for people, whatever it is, systems, products, in my case, housing, whatever it is. And then there's a consumer side, right? Which I'm
Mhm.
also on. I consume, but there's a lot of people that just sit on the consumer side. They might be in a cubicle somewhere, but really they're just they're on a they're just a cog in a system somewhere. And
Yeah, they're
so
just a cog making that guy that envisioned starting that company a lot of
yeah,
money and not
yeah.
yourself.
And yeah, I was like, man, why not me? Why not? Why can't I be that person? And that does take some courage. It takes a mindset shift. You got to get rid of some old thinking, mostly. And of course, you don't know how to do it. So there's all that, of course. But I think that's just natural progression if you decide, you to do it, you can actually do it. But
Yeah.
it's that entrepreneur. The reason I wrote that book was one to highlight people that were all doing all kinds of different things. It's there was nobody in there that was real estate at all. It was all
Yeah.
different products and services. And they're just people out there crushing it in their own way, trying to provide for themselves or their families. And it's interesting right now. There's a little bit of I guess, a negativity around capitalism or entrepreneurship, I would say. And it's funny because the companies and the businesses and the entrepreneurs are the ones that pay the most taxes for
Yeah.
everyone. I'm not saying that an employee doesn't pay taxes because they do, but I'm just saying that the producers pay a tremendous amount of tax, but the system's always also set up for them. It's set up for them legally from a tax standpoint. There's a whole bunch of things that open up to you when you venture into that entrepreneur world or
Yeah, like with like when you have a business and you're an entrepreneur, as an employee, the government takes your taxes out before you get paid technically.
right.
And business owners like Kenny and I, we pay taxes after we pay for all of our expenses.
That's right. And we also get tax credits and tax breaks and tax incentives and things like that for our business. So I'll give you a couple examples. On the real estate side, they give you what's called depreciation. So, they say, okay, whatever, this piece of real estate is going to depreciate over time. That's a non-operational expense that you get to write off against income. You also right now they've got this bonus depreciation, and there's all kinds of things, incentives for like buying new trucks or farm equipment or whatever it might be, prior to the end of the year, and you get full write-offs for those things, to upgrade your fleet or things for to help run your business or inventory or whatever it might be. There's the world is so much bigger when you jump into that business side. And candidly, I didn't know about any of this when I started. I actually didn't really look at the business piece as a way to save on tax at all. I was just looking at it as a way to try to get some extra money. But then I realized that there's a tremendous amount of things that you can do legally to offset your income and pay less in tax, at the benefit of your business and, of course, growing it.
Yeah. So getting into the real estate side of this now, with assets, of asset growth, we talk about the one key thing of depreciation. But having hard assets, why is this a strategy millionaires and billionaires use?
Yeah. Well, I think it just boils down to one basic thing, and that is inflation. So I like to use the example of my mom, who you've met. My mom was a hairdresser for 50 years, right?
Yep.
She didn't make a tremendous amount of money. My dad was in construction, good, hardworking folks. They bought a house. It was $10,700. That's how much the house was. Now, of course, this is back in the 60s. So,
Yep.
but she still owns it. It's the house I grew up in, right? It's the exact same house that I was raised in. My mom still owns it, and the house is worth over 700,000 now today. Now it's up in north of Seattle, where I grew up. Now here's the thing: my mom's not this tremendous real estate investor. Actually, I would no one would ever call her that, right?
Yeah.
She literally just raised a family in that house and kept it.
And get hair.
That's it, right? And then so inflation literally made that house worth what it is. And I think anybody can go back and look at, I would challenge anybody listening. What is the house that you grew up in? What was the price of that house? And I'd be surprised if anybody said that it was more. And it's just because inflation does its thing. So the interesting thing is you don't even have to be a real estate investor to realize that things are inflationary. Even the Fed says that their target is 2%, even though today it's 3, let's say the
Yep.
real inflation. Actually, and some would say higher, but we won't go down that road. But
Yeah.
the point is, you know, inflation does its thing. Over a long period of time, it makes the asset value prices higher. And so if you know that, then why wouldn't you buy things that ride with inflation? And
Yep.
real estate is one of those things. And the best part about real estate is that you could actually go to the bank and they give you 70, 80% to buy it. So you get inflation on the whole thing and you can finance 70 or 80%. It's insane. Like that, if you just think about it in that way,
Yeah.
then that's it, right?
It's a low cost of, I mean, semi low cost of entry of getting into real estate because a bank or somebody will want to put a loan on it because they want to have that. And that's what, you guys have heard me talking about good debt and bad debt from what Robert Kiyosaki and Kenny's always talked about. Your credit card is bad debt. Your house technically is a bad debt because you're not renting it out because it's not making you money. When you get in and you want to buy your first rental property, I think you guys remember when Tarl and I was having a conversation, and him and Kenny are good friends. And Kenny specializes in apartments, billboards, and a bunch of other stuff on the multiple family scales. Tarl was like the single families, but Kenny started out in the duplex, triplex, fourplexes before he got into the big things. So it's very easy. Like I know Kenny, you and I have talked about the best way is trying to go somebody trying to get in this. Somebody go try to find a duplex, triplex, fourplex, live in one, rent out the other three, and they're getting their mortgages paid for.
Yeah, that's certainly one method. There's so many, really. There are. I always recommend just start small. My sister, who was a bookkeeper, never went to college. She literally was a bookkeeper at a small clinic in north of Seattle her whole life, and she ran the books, and she never had a college degree or anything, and she just ended up buying one house like every 3 or 4 years, and she ended up with like I think 5 or 6 houses. And of course, prices went up, the tenants paid them off. And when she got ready to retire, of course, um, you know, she had millions, literally, those homes were worth millions of dollars. And her and her husband were like, what just happened? You know, and it was just a slow, methodical strategy. She didn't, she definitely worked to keep them full. And he was working in them and, doing maintenance and all the things that you have to do. If you're going to be a landlord, there's work. But at the end of the day, I want to say that those 5 houses or 6 houses, I know she had somewhere between $3 and $4 million in net worth because the tenants had paid them off. And she was making whatever a bookkeeper would make her whole life. And now he worked too, so just to be fair, there was two working.
Two
Um,
incomes going into it.
yeah, but I mean, it's like the model is the same every time, right? Just buy something, have somebody else pay it off, which is your tenant, um, and figure out how to get that down payment. You don't have to really pour yourself into this thing. It's not, you don't have to leave a job or anything like that. You need to make sure that you're doing something outside of Wall Street, outside of the system. That's the most important thing. You shouldn't have all your money sitting with a wealth manager or a financial planner. You should have gold outside, silver, water, timber, real estate. I'm all for Bitcoin stocks and all that stuff. I'm fine. I have that stuff. So
But
but
you're well diverse. I mean, you've never put anything in one. I mean, you started out in real estate, and I think real estate, silver, and gold is probably the three areas you started out with when you started getting some extra income in. And then
yeah,
you learned about everything else when you had like, well, I need to diverse more.
Correct. Yeah, and I think diversification is really important because real estate always doesn't go up for sure. And either is gold, either is silver, either is Bitcoin, either is Apple stock, or you just
Well,
you
I
just
mean,
don't.
let's just take this right now. Real estate in most areas is kind of stabilized out where interest rates, people are trying to sell, they're coming down in price, and people are trying to buy, but the interest rates are not doing it. So you're taking a look at that. You just saw a week and a half ago, Bitcoin crashed. But you look at gold and silver, guess where they're at? Almost
Yeah,
record highs.
yeah, and that's kind of the point. Like 2 years ago, real estate was the darling. Like, and now it's not, right? And but like, these are long game. This is a
Yeah.
long game. This is not I'm not trading. I'm not a day trader. I don't. I don't even buy and sell mostly during the year unless I'm accumulating. We're not really exiting much, so I
Yeah.
like to hold.
Everything that we're talking about here is long-term strategies.
Yeah,
Kenny doesn't go when he goes buy a property, he's not looking at it to sell it within 2, 3, 5 years. He's looking at, I'm holding on this property 10, 15 years to return money back to my investors and make all of us a lot of money, because this takes out those dips, the peaks and valleys of the real estate, because he's right now wanting to buy more real estate because it's at a discount. Pretty much, it's some areas, depending on which area you guys are in, he feels like this is a great time to buy, because if you have the capital and you have everything, you can ride out if it goes down a little bit more. But he's looking at, well, 10 years from now this thing's going to be worth this much.
right. That's exactly right. Yeah, we're buying right now.
I don't know, because we invest with you. We love when we get that email.
Oh, yeah,
Because that's what we do. I mean, and like when you become an accredited investor, it opens up a few more doors for you where you don't have to do the work. You're getting less of a return maybe if you did it all yourself, but it gives us the freedom to where, like, we give the money to Kenny. Kenny goes out there and does everything. He manages it. He does all the repairs. He has a whole big company and team that does this. And quarterly, he sends us money back. And this is what passive income truly is. We get money without doing no work at this point now.
yeah, and you got to pick the right jockey.
Yeah.
That's the big
No,
thing. Like,
let's get into that. I mean, because you've had such a reputation. This will kind of get us into we cover the residual, and we got into the assets. Now network. I mean, you've over 30 years, you've gotten into network, but people trust you with your money, and without your network and everything like that, people would not want you, like, they would not have been giving you money to be how successful you are now if they didn't trust you, of handling this stuff. So let's get into your network side of how did you build this network? How did you become where you are, where you can go out and say, I want to buy this property for $500 million. We're going to raise $250 million for capital improvements, all this stuff. And you can raise that within a week. How did that all come about?
well, I think this is a story about relationships, so it doesn't matter, like when you first meet somebody, let's say that you want to marry, or maybe you're on a date. um, you're not really, you're just seeing the best version of two people, right? That's all that's sitting there.
Hmm.
And then after a while, you start to see the real version, right? That's normal. That's actually how a lot of relationships are, right? And so the investor relationship is the same. So you need to be who you are on that very first, called that very first interaction, right? Or the first date. You can't change. And so what I find what happens is, in this business is that a lot of people um, they say things, they allude that they can do things and they can't. They don't have the teams, they don't have the experience, they don't have the track record. Um, and a lot of times they're not aligned. Their character, um, and their track record is just not there. And what happens is a lot of people don't they don't scratch the surface and look into that. And so that you don't have to have in the beginning a tremendous amount of experience. You just have to align yourself with people that do. And then at some point, you're that you're that those people. And I think so. A lot of times, it's this chicken egg thing. But the reality is Rocky, it's always about. I mean, I got the very best compliment from Kim Kiyosaki, actually Robert's wife. And she says this all the time. She says, Kenny always under promises and over delivers. And
Yep.
I think that mostly people don't do that. I'm always looking for how I'm wrong. Always. In fact, most of the, and also the other thing is I invest myself alongside of everyone, right?
Yep.
So as you know,
Yep.
like on the billboard thing, like I've got my own capital right alongside of yours, and I think that's important. So when you're looking for a jockey, you want to find somebody that literally has skin in the game. I'm looking to invest my own money, period. I'm looking for the very best. So selfishly, I'm actually looking for deals for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Because
and
you
I
want more
just don't
cash
have,
flow too. You want to
and
be
I,
able to
and
get more
I,
cash
yeah.
flow.
And a lot of times I don't have all the capital at the time to be able to buy whatever I'm buying. And so that's how I build my network. Whereas a lot of times I think people go out and they try to raise capital and then they go find something to buy. It's the absolute backwards, because people they can wrap their head around a deal like that deal I sent you. I think you probably got it this week on that new billboard
Yep.
deal. The
Yep.
six
Yep.
six six billboards between Las Vegas and Mesquite. It's super clear, right?
Yep.
This is how much we're in escrow. This is what it's going to be. This is what we're going to do. This is our time frames. That comes with a lot of experience and feedback and things like that. And so we've got it. People oftentimes make things super complex, and it's not like it's literally if I'm going to get 100 grand from somebody, what are they going to get annually in cash flow? Period. That's it.
Yep.
And I think what happens a lot of times is you can build these I would call it pro formas or spreadsheets or whatever you want, business plans, to make the numbers however you want. And sometimes people believe them. Sometimes they just do that to raise capital. And that's actually what crushes the long term. We've been doing this for 25 years. We have investors that have been with us for 25 years, and I'm actually now dealing with their kids in many cases, and because they're in trusts and all this stuff. But the interesting thing is, as long as I always tell, like, as long as we're delivering checks every quarter, everyone's happy, right?
Yep.
And the only way to do that, Rocky, is for me to be able to pick the right deal, because the deal pays everyone. And so it's actually quite simple business. But what happens is people start to get online, they raise capital, all these weird ways. They don't fully understand what they're buying and why, and all the risks. And so I think those are being exposed right now with a lot of people. And,
Yeah.
that's why they're, going out of business.
And this is again, let's kind of when I kind of talked about accredited investors before on this deal is so if you don't know what an accredited investor is, it's really you have to be worth so much money and have an annual income of X amount of money coming in. Just Google it and just put accredited investor and see what the requirements are. Why is it that now because when you first start out, when most people first start out, they're not looking for accredited investors. They're usually raising money from family and friends, correct?
Yeah, so I've always done accredited. It's like it's just a category that the SEC came up with, right? And it has nothing to do with me, it has nothing to do with you. It's literally they said you're accredited if if you're inside of this box that they created. There's a lot of people that are accredited out there, and a lot of retirement plans are accredited. So so there are sometimes people are putting their money into areas that they can actually invest from. And so it's a huge category, and I just we've always kind of stuck in that lane. On the in the credit side, we have, last I looked, close to 4,500 people on our in our accredited list that um, when I push a deal out, all 4,500 get that, and they've all said that they're accredited, and some are self-accredited. We get CPA letters, we get all the stuff, basically verifying
Yep.
that they're all that stuff for them, and the SEC makes you do that. So we have a whole investor relations department, and that's all they do. Like I was talking to my girl yesterday. She literally had 16 phone calls yesterday, with accredited investors that are giving us their information. So it's a whole system that you build, to try to make sure that you're compliant. But then it's sitting there when you drop a deal in, then that's how they get funded.
And so, going back to this network, so Kenny, if you just look at what Kenny has able to do, he has a network of people that want to invest with him, but he also has a network of everybody that helps him do this stuff. His tax people, his accounting people, his construction people when they need to remodel things. He's built, a couple of big networks of different things. He needed a network to when he wants to go buy something that people are going to give him money. And he has a network because not all these people work for him in his company. He's went out and found the best of the best in taxes, accountants that understands his business. So this is why you always need to be networking and using the leverage of your network to make you successful, because we all
Yeah,
can't be experts.
and I would actually say that you actually don't need a whole bunch of people on payroll. There's some incredibly talented folks out there like yourself,
Yeah.
Rocky. I mean, you have disciplines in a lot of areas, and people would be crazy not to sit down with you and say, and even partner with you or consult with you. And I have that too. And so, and you don't have to have this big complex organization like
No.
I have. I have 300 people on payroll now, but you don't have to have that. If you're just buying, like my sister didn't have any of that, right? Like she just, she actually ended up getting a real estate license so that she could participate in the commissions, which was super smart. But other than that, that's all, right? And then she would lean on me every once in a while for the property management side of the business, but she didn't have to. If I wasn't available, she would call somebody else. And so the issue is, it is a team sport, right?
Mhm.
You're not supposed to know how to property manage properties. Like you're not supposed to know how to finance them. You're not supposed to know how to interact with your insurance person. These are things that you learn after, from other people, and then you eventually get a little more proficient at it. It takes time. And you don't have to have a huge company. I've chosen to do that as my primary business.
But there's,
But
yeah, that's your primary business. But the people that, like your sister, like even Sherry and I now, we've decided we don't want to have a big business that we have to manage and handheld every day. So when we sold our company off um, to almost 3 years ago, we just like, well, we just want to be more passive, not handheld. So then, yeah, we don't make as much money because, you have to pay for all these services. So we just like, is this enough for us? Does this give us enough of a return on our hard money that we put in? And then, but then we accumulate all that money we get back, and then we reinvest it again. So we're not changing our lifestyles dramatically.
Dramatic.
We are bringing it like, okay, this is where we want to live at now. And we just want to be able to make sure this keeps coming year after year after year without us trading a lot of our hard-earned time for money, because neither one of us are going to have a 9 to 5 job again.
Yeah. Well, I'm of the age now, and I know you're getting up there, Rocky, where we're starting to see our friends and family break down.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, break down physically, right?
Yep.
I literally just had a phone call yesterday, and I actually was chatting with the same person a week ago. And here's the conversation, he's like, I'm climbing up and down on this ladder. I hurt my hip. I was in the hospital, and I'm getting close to retirement. I'm breaking down, and so that when you're 30, you don't think about these things. When you're 40, you're probably not thinking about these things. But then if you're still doing these manual type jobs, or you're working for somebody that you're reliant on, it starts to become a lot different. And because now you've got this young group coming in behind you that can maybe work faster, even though you're maybe more experienced and you've been there longer. So this is the way the world works. And so you have to get yourself into a position where there's passive income coming in. And it gives you a lot of control, a lot of power to be able to have that, what I call mailbox money, right? You've got mailbox money coming in from multiple sources. And so what you're doing today, Rocky, is you're doing what you want to do.
Yeah. And
Right?
and we're able to travel. And one of the thing that, Sherry and I love to do is travel. We have a big trailer. We travel across the United States. Only got a couple of states left that we haven't physically taken our trailer into. But here's also the thing that, that is actually part of our business, because we have a direct sales company that we're doing. So that's what you can consider our main job, our 9 to 5 job. But guess what? No matter where I go, long as I talk to people about the product that we offer, guess what happens to my whole trip now?
Yeah, it's a write-off.
It becomes a write-off, and we make money along the way. People pay us to go see these states because guess what? We take an hour, 2 hours out of our day to go educate somebody on a product, and then we stay there for a while. Then we move on to another destination where we travel, 2.5, 3 months a year. Who wouldn't want to do that their whole lives?
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand that you guys actually did that later in life. Like
Yeah.
you were doing it differently,
Mhm.
and then you sold your business and you created this lifestyle in just the last few years.
Yeah.
And it was intentional. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't something that you stumbled on. It was literally planned and strategic. And
Yeah.
I think
We thought it was true.
everybody can do something similar.
Well, and the reason why we really did this was we wanted to have the lifestyle travel, because when we sold our company, we then really turned over and started investing a lot with Kenny. That's when we kind of started doing that. But we was like, well, we don't want to be tied to any one place to be able to, like, I have employees I have to go oversee and all that. And then we started looking at them like, okay, but we want something. We still want a business because we understand the business benefits if you get, but something that can give us enough money still where we can invest more, because we want to upgrade our lifestyle. We can really upgrade our lifestyle right now, but we like, well, that would drain our bank account past a threshold that we're not comfortable with. So why don't we do something that we can travel around the world, because literally our product can be sold in 75 plus different countries. You just pick a country where you can go sell it to, and you can start writing off everything. but it gave us a lot more money now to all that stuff is being paid for from what we're selling. And then we get money back to where we're like, okay, when Kenny, like he sent a deal this last week, within the last week, we was over in Cali when that was sent to us. So I haven't had a chance to read through it yet. Um, but that's just the things that, you get to do when you have multiple streams of income coming in and you can control your own life that way. I mean, I know Kenny does the same thing. Even though he has a 300-person employee company, that guy he travels. He was down in Mexico City not too long ago speaking. He was, I mean, these are speaking engagements that you get your costs covered for by going down and seeing places because people pay you to.
Yeah, yeah, and even last weekend, I was, hanging out at the Navy SEAL,
Yeah.
4 days, 3 nights, in Coronado, entirely, a business related expense. We're raising money for the SEALs. We donated a bunch of money. It was part of Limitless, which is, something we do in our annual conference, and
Mhm.
all of that is all wrapped up in lifestyle, right? Those are things that I want to do. Next
Yep.
week, I'm going to the New Orleans Investment Conference, to learn about gold, silver, Bitcoin, crypto, and well, obviously to learn more about it. And then on the backside of that, we've got our mastermind, the collective
Mhm.
inner circle. So, and it's all completely strategic, and blessed by, I might add, by my wife. She's like, yeah, thumbs up, thumbs down. So
Yep.
everything we do together as a partner.
Yeah.
And and so I'm moving at the speed that both of us are good with.
Yeah. So, like you just mentioned, going down to New Orleans here soon, and that's more about your continuing education of you wanting to learn. That's your consistent action. Is the one thing I know about Kenny is he's never not learning something new. Why is that so important for people, especially entrepreneurs, to consistently learn? Do you have consistent
Yeah.
actions of everything?
Well, I think there's, especially now, like everybody's got so many opinions about stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they
Like
do.
it's super confusing. So I totally decided for me, I was gonna go deep and stay in my lane with multifamily, which I've done.
Mhm.
We've got so let's say 9,000 apartments right now. And that's a lane I understand, right? I do. I know how to buy them. I know how to finance them. I know how to manage them. And I've been doing it for 30 years.
Mhm.
When I jump out of my lane, gold, water rights, silver,
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin, crypto, whatever it is, even office buildings or self storage or build to rent or whatever you want to call it, I'm out of, I'm out of my comfort zone. And so for me, I'm always trying to figure out, what I'm trying to look for really solid operators that are doing whatever they're talking about, and try to learn from them. Typically they have books, typically they have podcasts, typically those kinds of things. So before I jump into something, I'm actually doing a fair amount of research around it.
I
Like
mean,
I was with Jim Rickards a month ago, and he really believes gold is, just going to keep rolling, right? Okay, that's his opinion, and
yep.
he's one of the most smartest people I know. Okay, so I'm like, I'm going to go. I'm going to see other people's opinions, and that's it. I just trust but verify. That's all.
Well, like Robert Kiyosaki always says, there's three sides of a coin. You got the heads, tails, and the edge. You have
Yep.
to study all three pieces of this stuff because we don't know what the truth is out there in this world anymore because we got
Yeah.
so much disinformation out there about you can read, like he says, he was talking to Jim, he thinks gold's going to go up. I can tell you, in a quick search, I can find somebody that says gold is going to crash back down to 2000.
That's right. Yeah. And I probably won't have all the answers, Rocky, but I
You're going to make
feel
an
like
educated guess.
I'm really trying to be well researched on everything that I'm doing personally. And this is not for other people. This is
Yeah.
just me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to learn from people. I'm going to sit in there and learn from speakers. I'm going to buy some books. I'm going to for sure walk away with knowledge that I didn't have before. So, I just think it's part of a lifelong process.
And when you was talking about, like you go educate yourself like this, and I know over the last 4 or 5 years, you had to educate yourself just on your billboard side of the business now that you launched. I
Yeah,
mean, you
that's
and I
another.
talked about the billboard for a long time about I want to try to get into this market. I mean, this
Yeah.
wasn't a flip of a switch and saying you all of a sudden just bought a billboard and it started going. This was I mean, it would take you what 3 to 5 years to launch that,
Yeah,
right?
oh yeah, for sure. Almost 5 years of buying and selling and understanding of myself before I even talked about it with investors. And now, of course, we've got two great partners out looking for sites. We're acquiring companies, and next year, our goal next year is to do 30. It's a progression, right? But again, it's building another business, building another company. So yes,
So I mean,
but I,
this is what Kenny has done. I mean, he goes out and he goes and finds the people to educate him on this stuff and everything, but it doesn't happen overnight. Is what with this consistent action that everybody needs to do. You need to be always continuing learning your mindset, getting
yeah,
right about what money actually is. you know.
yeah. And I'll give you another example. I did this. I went and bought a Mercedes Sprinter van,
Mhm.
and the purpose of that was to go out and stay at RV parks, decide if I wanted to invest in them. And so we left Arizona, went all the way up to Idaho. We saw you guys, and then came back down through Park City and Jackson Hole, and we cut across the country, and we were hitting RV parks. And at
Mhm.
the end of that trip, I concluded that that's not something that I wanted to invest in. But that is how I did it. Like and so I now I talk to people. I actually had a conversation 2 days ago with a Canadian group. The guy's trying to convince me to invest in RV parks, and now I'm sitting there chatting with him about my experience around those. And I just, you that is required if you're going to invest or your money or somebody else's, or you're going to put a partnership together. You really have to be all in, and it sometimes it's thumbs up and sometimes it's thumbs down.
Yeah. But one of the biggest things we want to have you understand on this consistent action part is make sure you're continually learning, getting your mindset right because entrepreneurship is not always easy. And your mind's your biggest enemy in this stuff of your self doubt.
Yeah, that's a fact.
um, the last part of the ranch method here before we kind of wrap up things is just honoring values, who you are. We kind of kicked this off of when Kenny was talking about his, building his network of showing up who you are. This is, going back and deep diving into that a little bit more of just what's your why, what's your purpose, what's your values of you wanting to do this. And it should be more than just I want to become a millionaire. You need to have more of a why. What is your main why? Is it your family? Whatever. Why is this so important? I know you had your why, and it's developed over time because you've met that. When you first started out, your why was this, and I'm sure now it's something totally different because you've grown and adapted and you learned.
Well, it's a great question. I think that everyone has to take an assessment of where they are
Mhm.
personally, like personally, right? And in some cases, somebody's why could be they're just trying to get one more, side piece of income. Okay, so their why could be survival, or moving from call it earned income to passive income,
Yep.
example. And I think everyone starts there. And so I would say that it begins with almost survival, and a mindset of how to get away from what I consider to be earned income.
Yeah.
You got earned and you got passive. Earned means that you show up every day and you get a paycheck. Passive means that you don't. So I think it starts there in its brutalest sense that it's just a survival and cash, and you're trying to cover your expenses, and you're trying to climb out of a hole. You're fighting old beliefs. You're probably in circles that you might not be in, and all that stuff. So you're the beginning is that, and then what happens when it starts to work? People are tugging on you and go, how'd you do that? And then it becomes more educational, I would say. For me, that's where I went. That's why I started writing the books and speaking with Robert and all that. Now I've got my kids in the company, and so now it's turning into more mentoring, coaching, legacy, family, obviously health. But I think it all, just to be brutally honest, everyone starts in a place of money,
Yeah.
and it's not a negative word. It's just, it is what it is. You're just trying to provide for your family or yourself, and then it progresses from there. I think you got to be careful if somebody's been focused on money from the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and that's probably somebody you don't want to associate yourself with.
Yeah.
But I think it does start there, and then it just massages
Yeah, I
things.
mean, especially when you're trying to get to where you can start taking less of that earned income and have more passive and getting your time freedom back. I mean, and
Yeah,
that's why I kind of like I usually say, one of my biggest whys is having my time freedom. I'm not stuck in being told I have to be someplace at a certain time anymore. I was 20 years in a corporate job
yeah,
before I started my own company. And I tell you what, I had to be on a plane at midnight one time flying back to New York to go fix some problem. It it caused, was one of the factors for me getting a divorce, because I wasn't able to make my own decisions because I was tied to work.
yeah,
Somebody else was directing me. And I know a lot of people have experienced that stuff. So, my value is like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to go through another relationship because work was telling me to do this stuff.
yep. That's right. That's right. And I do got an investor committee call in a few minutes.
All right,
So,
yeah, we'll wrap
but
this up there.
I can't thank you enough for the interview. This is
Oh, thank you
fantastic.
for coming on, man. Remember, go to KennyMcElroy.com. Is it Ken McElroy, right? Ken McElroy.
GetMacRoy.com. Yep.
If you want to get in depth and more into the real estate side of it, you can join his insider
Yep.
inner
Yep.
circle there. He's going to have lessons on how to evaluate deals. You get books on there. He's my go-to guy. Him, Taro, are like the people I love talking real estate with because they know more about it than I do, even though I know quite a bit about it. I've just never taken it to the level they have. So, but both of these guys, again, Kenny's site is great. Go there, get in his inner circle. It's not that much. I think it's like $100 a year or something like that.
Yeah. It's.
It's cheap.
I think and you don't have to join. Actually, there's
No.
just a lot of information that is good there. But I do got to roll, Rocky. I
Yep.
appreciate it, man.
Have a
Thank
good one,
you.
brother. We'll talk to
Okay,
you later.
cheers, guys. See ya. Bye bye.